I want to talk about how we underestimate what the administration is going to do, even though they tell us, right? I'm looking at Harvard, right? Harvard, the Trump administration said we are going to not let any of your students have foreign students have visas, right? We're going to deny foreign students visas to go to Harvard. But I thought about it the other day, and I was like, maybe Harvard is just a test case. Maybe we should be looking at this in from the point of view of the foreign students. Maybe what they're saying is we are not going to let any foreign students in this country at all. And we'll see how this plays out when we attack the premier university in the country. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think that's spot on. Because I think this is where a lot of people just had wool over their eyes about
Hmm.
the ideology that's driving this bus.
Hmm.
They have no use for anything non-American, with the word American having a particular nationalistic and pretty racial definition.
Hmm.
Um, and so they are different from a Mitt Romney Republican, if anyone can remember when that existed, with someone who would have said like, "Well, I'm not really against immigrants, but I don't want it to be illegal and so forth." And there are
Right.
people who I think sincerely believe that, but they are not running the government right now. So I think a lot of people say in business, um, are inclined towards this. Of course, they often realize they need the labor and the skills that immigrants bring. And so, like, why would you target the most brilliant, young PhD students in the world?
Hmm.
Why can't you see why they're beneficial to us, right? Any
Hmm.
economist can tell you why they're beneficial to this. A historian can tell you about many examples in history where countries built themselves by attracting um, the the best and brightest that other people discarded.
Hmm.
And the Statue of Liberty, was inspiring the whole huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Also, a good business plan, right? So
Uh-huh.
they and that was a secret sauce for the United States. These folks don't believe in that,
Hmm.
right? So they do not care how brilliant your Bangladeshi chemist is. All they hear is Bangladeshi, right? So I think that is very much on the agenda. I don't think it's economically. I think it's economically disastrous,
Hmm.
right? But I think so. There are some who might say, okay, realize we actually need these workers, or we'll have no food in the grocery store, right? And others, I think the people who are driving this policy actually they don't care, right?
Hmm.
And if we can't afford to buy fresh vegetables anymore, um, I think they think that's a reasonable cost to keep America pure.
I don't think they even think about vegetables. Like, no, the people who are driving this haven't been to a grocery store in years. They have no idea what regular people are going through. Also, I'm going to take a little bit of issue with the Mitt Romney thing because I think what you're saying is, well, we had Republicans who were moderately racist. That was, that's different from these Republicans who are outwardly racist. I think
Sure.
that he was a step on the way, right? And
Yeah.
Stuart Stevens, who was his campaign manager, wrote a book in which that was titled "It's All a Lie," and it was all a lie. And he specifically said it's the entire Republican agenda from the 1980s forward was about racism. The book about Mitt Romney. Romney would not go there. He would not go that far.
And
And I
Rom,
think that
yeah.
we have been moving that this way the entire time.
I look. I'm not going to bend over too far to defend him. He also was very bad on immigration, right? And he
Yes.
he promoted self. In fact, that was the first time I think I ever heard the phrase self deportation, which has now
Yes.
become in vogue. I think in Romney's case, it was partly because of what you said, which is that he could not, because I think he's a probably fundamentally decent person at some level. He couldn't
Yes.
bring himself. He would not want to go to Alligator Alcatraz. That's hard. That's
Yes,
impossible to imagine,
and
although that is
exult
like
in it.
a
Yes.
direct result. I also want to say again, if we want to trace origins, I mean, we can find many origins. There was the Know Nothing Party in the the 1900s. But in terms of modern politics and the Republican Party, I would say the 80s and Reagan and sort of forms of polite Reagan, racism that he mastered. And also, we have to go back to the Southern strategy, right? Because
Right.
I think there is an issue about, the Southern strategy was a conscious effort to take political advantage of some of the public's darkest impulses,
Mhm.
and
That's what this is.
it's very clear why that opportunity was there, right? And it was because of racism, and figuring out how can we, in a post civil rights movement world, take advantage of this. But it's also a moral choice that they made, and I think there's a direct line from that